Fantastic. Great to see everyone today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Matthew Bremen. We're going to get started. I'm the Global Director for the GYEO 2030 initiative. Making Sense is excited today to have CRS hosting this third of 5 lead GYEO solution sessions. As you see on the screen, leveraging social impact bonds and innovative finance for youth employment. There's a natural link to GYEO 2030 since CRS is a global organization committed to both the Sustainable Development Goals and youth is an important strategic goal area for them. So we're excited to have them with us. Just to briefly provide you some context for these solution sessions. Next slide, please. Since 2007, Making Sense has been convening the Global Youth Economic Opportunity Summit to share learning, develop partnerships, and advance economic opportunities for youth. Many of you have participated. The inequities that COVID and social justice movements have exposed have increased the need to accelerate change, particularly for young people, has become a turning point for the GYEO Summit agenda. So what we're doing is transforming our approach to fully include young people alongside adults in our activities to ensure young people are co-designing solutions to their own problems and not just serving as window dressing on panels. Today, we'll hear from a young person, which is going to be certainly the highlight for me. In addition, we're going to expand dialogue beyond Washington and the US. We seek to host or support convenings around the world to engage youth and adults locally to discuss solutions to SDG 8 in particular, and that are relevant in their context. During 21-22, we're doing this through a series of events you see listed on the slide here at the bottom. Youth dialogues, the solution sessions or webinars on key topics of interest to young people, and then convenings, regional and global convenings, or a series of near-term activities designed to share the latest GYEO program lessons and gain commitment from actors globally to advance good practices within a common language and framework of the SDGs, and specifically achievement of SDG 8, which for those who are not familiar, it's to, quote, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. We also plan to establish global convenings as annual touch points to track progress toward achievement of SDG 8. If you go to the next slide, I just want to thank our partners for their financial and in-kind contributions as we embark on this exciting new initiative. I specifically want to recognize Palladium, who's our global session partner, along with FHI 360 and CRS, who's hosting today, who are our regional session partners. I also want to acknowledge our first 2 local partners, Africa Skills Hub out of Ghana and the Latin American Leadership Academy out of Colombia and Brazil. The organization is joining every day, so please let us know if you're interested in committing to GYEO 2030. But now I want to just transition over to the actual session. We're excited to hear about emerging financial instruments and models, including social impact bonds that are helping increase economic opportunities for young people. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Petula Nash, who will be moderating today's session. Over to you, Petula.
Thank you, Matt. Hello and welcome. My name is Petula Nash, and I'm the Global Technical Director for Youth Programming at Catholic Relief Services. I'm very pleased to be moderating this session on innovative finance in the youth space. In the past few years, there has been growing interest in developing and testing innovative financing mechanism in this space, given the size of the challenge and the opportunity that the youth bulge presents. With a global youth population of 1.3 billion, a significant number of young people are facing major challenges related to education, employment, and livelihoods. 267 million are not in education, employment, or training. Of the 429 million young workers worldwide, 50 million live on less than $2 a day, and 71 million on less than $3 per day. Young people are 3 times as likely as adults to be unemployed, and in most regions, unemployment is more prevalent among young women. Given the magnitude of these challenges, there is urgency in reaching young people on a large scale and addressing system barriers that prevent them from having sustainable livelihoods and dignified lives. Government funding and philanthropy alone are insufficient to meet this overwhelming need. A large and growing market for impact investment and innovative mechanisms provides new sources of financing that can help address some of the systemic challenges faced by young people around the world. Hence, the infusion of private capital from institutions and individuals and leveraging the private sector are critical. In a policy research paper published by the World Bank more than 10 years ago, innovative financing is defined as a range of non-traditional mechanisms to raise additional funds for development aid through innovative projects, such as taxes, public-private partnerships, and market-based financial transactions. In the early stages, innovative financing mechanisms were being tested and applied to the healthcare sector, and through these mechanisms, billions of dollars were raised. In this session, we will hear from experts in structuring alternative financing mechanisms, such as social impact bonds and blended finance vehicles that are being tested in the youth space and which aim to sustainably address the youth unemployment crisis. We will also hear from a company in Madagascar that has accessed one of these mechanisms and from a youth entrepreneur who is part of their franchise model. So during this time we have together, we will have our panelists present and answer a follow-up question. We will then open it up for questions from the audience. So please share your questions in the Q&A panel. At first, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Irina Albero, who's the CEO of Henderson & Albero, a consulting firm. She specializes in financial instruments for social innovation and has contributed to the development of social impact bonds and pay for success schemes in Latin America. In the past 5 years, Irina has pioneered impact innovation schemes in Mexico and is a founding member of the Latin American Network for Pay for Result. She has also worked as a consultant with federal, state, and local governments, academia, financial institutions, and NGOs. Since 2017, Henderson & Albero has partnered with Social Finance UK to promote the impact ecosystem in Mexico and Latin America. We also have Ben Kouakou, who is the Director of Operations of the Education to Employment Initiative at Investisseurs et Partenaires, IMP, where he oversees the investment strategy and portfolio monitoring. Ben has over 10 years of experience in venture capital private equity industry. He has also been on several boards of startups in the digital healthcare and clean tech industries in France, Germany, and the UK. Ben was also a consultant to various African entrepreneurial initiatives and the World Bank, where he contributed to a project that designed solutions to address the capital gap in funding for SMEs in Africa. Tahiri Ramboa is the operations manager at GYEO. Tahiri started his career in the energy sector, where he purchased solar lights from a company, which he then rented in a rural community in Madagascar. After some time, the company recruited him as a coordinator, and he later joined another company, Proof. It's under that company that GYEO, which started as a program, was spinned off in 2014 as an independent company. José Arthur Fahalahi, which goes by Arthur, is a youth entrepreneur. He's from a rural town about 165 miles south of the capital, Antananarivo. He's a farmer and a member of a local savings group. In 2020, Arthur became a GYEO franchisee, renting solar lights to people in his community. He started with 82 lamps and currently rents to 169 families. He plans to expand the business to support his family and help children in his community to complete their homework with improved lighting system. During his free time, Arthur supports his community as a health worker, and he graduated from high school in 2019. Beth Collin is the Managing Director of Impact Investing at CRS, where she has structured and led impact investing and innovative finance activities since their inception in 2015. She also oversees CRS's impact investing strategy and serves as chair of Azure Source Capital, LLC, a financing vehicle developed by CRS to expand communities' access to water services in Latin America. Beth also leads CRS's advocacy efforts on impacted debt, investing, and social enterprise, having produced 2 Vatican impact investing conferences and acting as chair of the Caritas Internationalis Impact Investing and Social Enterprise Working Group. Beth Collins has a 30-year executive career with global experience spanning corporate and non-profit sectors. So now I will open it up to our panelists, and we will start with Irina. Irina, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Petula, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. And I will talk a little bit of our experience working with SIPs and other financial mechanisms and youth employment. Next, please. Well, as a consulting firm, we started working in 2010. We're a multidisciplinary team. We design, structure, monitor, and evaluate social impact strategies. We've been promoting the Pay for Success ecosystem, mainly in Latin America, and developing innovative financial instruments to foster social and sustainable development. We've been working with governments, private sector, civil society, and organizations to conduct feasibility studies and design social impact contracts, as well as other pay for results schemes. We've participated directly in 2 SIPs in Mexico, but we've also advised many governments in Latin America on how to implement pay for success mechanism for their governmental social programs. We've partnered with practitioners and academic institutions to promote pay for success schemes, and we are partners of Social Finance UK in Mexico, and we've done a lot of work with them in Latin America. We've pioneered in developing new financial instruments to strengthen evidence-informed intervention in areas such as health, education, youth policies, social policies, and financial services. We've had the opportunity to work with many clients, including Visa, MasterCard, Santander, UNDP, UNICEF, the government of El Salvador and Colombia, and as well as USAID and other entities. Next, please. What are the main finance vehicles that we had the opportunity to use? First, result-based contracts. As many of you know, these are flexible contracts where payments are directly linked to the achievement of specific outcomes or results instead of inputs or activities. So rather than focusing just on having a series of activities, we're putting the emphasis on achieving results. A subset of result-based contracts are social impact bonds, where we're looking for contracts in which a third party, private investors, mainly impact investors, can help provide the upfront capital to service providers to help deliver a result. This is very important because many times the service providers are non-governmental organizations, and they do not have the financial backbone to wait for payments for results. So having impact investors providing for capital is a key factor of social impact bonds. And without impact investors, it becomes impossible to do these mechanisms. We also have outcome funds, which are funding mechanisms that enable several result-based contracts or social impact bonds to be developed simultaneously and thus supported in parallel under a common framework. These help reduce the cost of the social impact bonds and promote to have many social impact bonds happening simultaneously. Next. Thank you. Impact bonds for youth and specifically for youth employment have been very successful and very used. We have 35 of them at the worldwide that have served somewhere around 44,000 youth. In Latin America, we have 4 of them in Colombia and Argentina. We have served so far somewhere around 3,000 youth. And we're working very hard with CRS to have a new one in Nuevo León, in the north of Mexico, which will serve 300 young people. Next, please. What are the key considerations that we have to take into account when working with new financial instruments, and specifically SIPs? SIPs have been very successful in strengthening result-based interventions and successful interventions that promote youth employment. However, they do have high administrative and structuring costs. So what we've found is that we need to have sequential contracts to reduce the cost of negotiations and the initial costs of the SIPs, which are the studies that we need to do, the performance management, the negotiation process between actors, the definition of metrics, the contracting process. In order to reduce these costs, we need to, or it is useful to create outcome funds, that is to have resources, larger resources in the payment side, the final payment side, that will enable to have several paying result mechanisms related to the same topic with the same actors within a reduced time frame. In that way, we can have economies of scale and have much more successful sequential outcome pay for results schemes happening at the same time. Studies have shown that outcome funds have been promoting much more pay for results schemes happening in a faster way within a time frame. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Irina, for getting us started on this very interesting topic. It was really interesting also to see that there are 35 such mechanisms currently being implemented, tested in the youth space. So thank you so much, and we will hear a little bit more through the Q&A. So let me now pass it over to Ben. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Petula. It's my pleasure being today with you to discuss blended finance. We think blended finance is a critical instrument that could help developing countries to tackle challenges they are facing, especially in the education sector. So I'm happy to share with you our experiments here at the CCRA partner, INP, in impact investing in Africa. Next slide, please.
Ben, excuse me, if you could get a little bit closer to the mic so we can hear better.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Perfect.
Is it okay now?
Yes,
okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Next one, please. Okay, thank you. So INP has a long history in impact investing in Africa. Since 20 years now, INP's mission is to bring financing to local entrepreneurs and to address the finance gap of African MSMEs. INP is managing over 200 million euros for different impact vehicles. And our contribution to Africa, such to say our DNA, is to promote African entrepreneurship, being additional to other funders and actively partnering with entrepreneurs to accelerate their growth and maximize their impact. To cover a large spectrum of local African MSME needs, we've set up three complementary business lines to address financing issues for startups to SMEs with high potential growth. INP is also sponsoring local impact funds in 5 African countries we now expect more in the near future. And those national funds are investing in businesses post-acceleration. Since INP has supported over 170 companies through investment in equity and quasi-equity, concessional debts, and grants. We are now more than 100 people inside INP. We are almost all based in Africa with 8 African offices, and our headquarters is in Paris. Investors in INP vehicles are diverse and with different approaches. There are DFIs, foundations, large companies in Africa and Europe, and also individuals. There are over 70 investors right now. INP is involved in blended finance since its beginning, 20 years ago, with technical assistance embedded in almost all vehicles under management. Learning from such instruments suitable to address systemic issues in Africa, INP is raising a dedicated impact fund for education sector in Africa. And this is INP, Education to Employment, IP2E. Next slide, please. Go, please, next slide. Do you hear me? Okay, thank you. So IP2E is a blended finance impact fund dedicated to education sector in Africa. It is an innovative approach on the continent. Our ambition with this fund is to bring responses to quality challenges the education sector is facing in Africa, and also to contribute to better access to quality education for pupils. Our dedicated education initiative has two pillars. The first pillar is the impact fund, IP2E. It's a blended finance vehicle, we expect at 50 million euro with investment tickets ranging from 500K to 5 million euro. The fund will invest through equity and quasi-equity in education businesses in West Africa mainly, in the first step, including the Sahel region. The fund will target startup and SME sector of tertiary education, TVET, and ancillary businesses like EdTech technology. For this fund, IP2E, we have designed with two tranches: the junior tranche with a capped return at 1%, and the senior tranche not capped, no capped return, but we do expect delivering a return of 7% for senior investors.
Ben, can you hear us? Sorry, Ben, you were cut off for a few seconds. So, but I think you're back.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I think we may have lost you again.
That's okay now. Do you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So as I've said, I hope you got it. So as I've said, the fund has been designed with two investment tranches: a junior tranche with capped return at 1%, senior %. It is important having such blended structuration as it will help. It has a catalytic effect to attract senior investors and such investors reaching minimum return. As you know, education is a systemic sector. It doesn't, from our perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to implement a commercial approach for this sector, especially if you would like fostering accessibility of African youth to quality education in order to match market demand for talent. It's important also for me to testify about that. INP is facing this shortage, a lack of talent in Africa. Over the last 20 years, we've learned that the first need of SMEs in Africa after financing is lack of qualified employees. This is also the reason why that makes sense for us to serve this fund. The reason of this shortage. So maybe let me talk about the second pillar of our education initiative. It's also a component of our blended approach. it is the access facility. Now it encompasses 2 programs funded by EU and MasterCard Foundation. Those programs will also target education sector companies in Sahel region and Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. It is not, obviously, it's not a commercial approach, since the support to education businesses will be done through grants as COVID-19 resilience plan program and 0% interest loans. The size of the access facility is 10 million euro already in place. It is now supporting 8 businesses, and those companies are good candidates for the impact fund, IP2E impact fund. And also, it is important to know that implementing complementary between the 2 pillars also component of our approach with this blended finance structures. It makes a lot of sense having such blended finance structure to de-risking some businesses before joining the investment fund. Next slide, please. Go. So the innovative approach brings significant contribution to SDGs. We hope with local entrepreneurs to provide local quality education connected to local job market and access for vulnerable youth in less developed countries. We are expecting 1 million beneficiaries for this program, students, trainees, and also their family in Africa. And to create also with this program or maintain over 3,000 jobs in local education ecosystem. Now let's turn to the next slide, please. So now let me share with you considerations and lessons learned over this blended finance vehicle. Blended finance is, as I've already said, an innovative approach to address education and employability needs in Africa. Education is now underserved by impact investors in Africa. From the feasibility study we run in 2019, over 75% of investors in Africa private education sector have commercial approach. From our perspective, impact investment in education sector could be or should be defined as investment in business model delivering positive impact in terms of quality and access, and so on and so forth. It is key, it's a key sector, it's a critical sector for less developed countries, where governments have limited resources for tertiary education. In a fund like IP2E, it is important to have different investors with different but complementary approach. Foundation, NGOs, again, private companies, and commercial investors. We think there's a lot of complementary in such approach, and they're risking such kind of vehicle. Unfortunately, blended finance is still a node buy for some private investors. That's what we've learned since. We've learned that some investors are assimilating blended finance to high-risk assets with usually poor return. We have to, in a certain way, advocate the mechanism. This is the reason why our access facility, already presented, is embedded on impact measurement component to produce reports as proof of reliance of such approach. Our approach with IP2E is also intended to impact direct beneficiaries with blended finance approach, and such we decide to implement technical assistance. For example, with CRS, we are discussing with CRS right now to design policies in order to foster better social inclusion in our MasterCard program, for example. We are exploring mechanisms like tuition sponsoring, income share agreement, and other paths. Thank you for your attention, and sorry again for our connection issue.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for bearing with all of us and you, the audience, as well, with some of these technical issues that we unfortunately confront when we're all virtual. So you had the opportunity to hear from an entity that has, as Ben indicated, investing in these mechanisms for the past 20 years, and in particular about a blended financial vehicle, IP2E, which is really focusing on the educational sector. So now we will turn over to Tahiri, who will take the perspective of a company that has benefited from one of those mechanism vehicles. And so, Tahiri, over to you.
Thanks, Petula, for handing the mic. So my name is Tahiri. I'm the operations manager of GYEO. And to start with, let me tell you a bit with who GYEO is and what we're doing. Can you go to the next slide? Yes. So GYEO is a social company. Like our aim is to make renewable energy accessible to everybody, like even the poorest people, through a network of franchises. How we do it is that we recruit franchises at village level, for instance, commune or district. And then for those franchises that we're recruiting, we provide them the solar materials that goes with the lights needed that they need to rent in their village. I would like to focus a little bit on the form of the business here, because we are not selling the product, but instead we're renting them. The reason why we do that is that as 80% of Malagasy people are living under $2 a day, for most of them, it's very difficult to make a direct purchase of the light or of the product. That's why we came with the idea of renting it out. And the role of the franchisee in all that is during the day, he recharges the lights or the products at his place. And in the evening, he goes around and deliver the lights to the users, the customers. And then the next morning, he collects the lights again and bring it home to recharge. And he works like that 7 days out of 7, 24, 300, a year long, sorry. Next slide. So we have set ourselves as a beneficiary of that loan from Crs. We have set ourselves an objective of 24,800 products to be distributed by the end of this year, and by the end of the contract, up to 40,000 products delivered to customers every day. And with that, we hope to create about 120 jobs for this year. And by the end, 250 franchises who will distribute lights in all the regions of Madagascar. And in terms of number of beneficiaries, then when we say beneficiaries here, then we talk about families, member of the families, and we hope to reach up to 200,000 beneficiaries by the end of the contract of the loan. Next slide. However, our impact to date, where we are late compared to our initial objectives of 20,000 and more products by the end of the year. Well, we all know the reasons. COVID has been difficult for everyone, but now we are at 15,138 lights rented out in all over the regions where we're active, 102 franchises active, and more than 75,000 individuals impacted by the project. And on top of everything, well, we all know the impact of climate change, but at least we are participating in a very small scale, I would say, of the reduction of 60 tons of CO2 emissions per year, which we hope will increase in the next years. The next slide. Okay, so how GYEO works, the philosophy is that we do not discriminate. A person can be a female, can be male, as long as they have the legal age to work. And anyone who is just interested in becoming an entrepreneur, they're more than welcome as they fulfill the criteria. And we are here talking about youth employment. As I described in my first slide, to become a franchisee, they have to deliver lights every evening to the customers. So in order to do that, they need to be, fitness is key, because sometimes these franchises, they have to walk or ride a bicycle quite some distances to reach all the customers. That's why majority of our franchises are under 30, but we also have people who are more than 30, but they're still young in their spirit. So they just fulfill the criteria. And well, with a job, then I guess all the franchises we have here are supporting the coach to get their social, they're in a social environment, a good product for a cheaper, for cheaper expenses, and also on the number of products they're renting out, they also receive their own salary. And one important aspect of the work is that these franchises do not receive from GYEO a fixed salary every month, but instead they earn a commission on the number of lights or power bank they're renting out every day. So when we have good franchises who are like always willing to push to challenge themselves, then they easily get themselves like comfortable salary income. And as we recruit people everywhere without asking for any any graduation level, then we at least require from them that they present an attestation of good behavior issued by their local authority that will serve us to back us up to protect our business. Next slide. Okay, so some key considerations then, well, as I mentioned already earlier, the selection of the franchisee is key to the success of the business. That's why we require them to give this attestation of good behavior. And we also provide like continuous, like for instance, we have area coordinators who are visiting them once a week to make sure they're supported according to the business they're doing. And we are now on the way to digitalize the development of our business so that we can follow up nicely on what's happening and react accordingly. And for the partnerships between NGOs and small companies, then these are very important to make very quick impacts in the areas where we are active, and thus helping us also to reach our objectives and the objectives of the project. That's all for me, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Tahiri. So we heard from a company that benefited from one of these mechanisms, and and we heard a bit about their model. And I was thinking, as importantly, also about the impact that they're having in the communities on an environmental aspect. So thank you so much, Tahiri. We will now turn over to Arthur. So as we noted, Arthur is a young entrepreneur. He's also a GYEO franchisee. So we will hear from him a bit about his personal history, but really also about what it has meant to be a franchisee, what this has meant in terms of his livelihood, his employment. Just want to note that Arthur speaks Malagasy, and so we will have one of our colleagues translate for him into English. So welcome again, Arthur, and over to you and your translator, Jim. Over.
Okay, thank you, Petula. Just to note, I'll be translating for Artur, so I'll be asking him a question and he'll be responding in Malagasy, and I'll translate that for you. So, salam Artur, maino tsara ve?
Maino tsara.
Ai, tsara zany. Ia, Artur, afaka manao présentation kely ianao, iza le anaranao, miasa aiza, firy taona ianao, de angamba zavaina kely amin'ny ekipa ety, le asa ataonao taloha niditra tamin'ny GYEO de inona ny asa ataonao amin'ny GYEO?
Ny anarako de Artur, 24 taona de mipetraka ao Sarahafatra. De ny asa ataoko zao de mpianatra raha ao amin'ny orinasa GYEO.
Okay, merci Artur. So Arthur is 26 years old. His name is Artur Faralai, and he lives in Tsarafatra, which is a town in the southeast of Madagascar. Okay, Tuizan.
Please. Ny asa efa nataoko taloha zao de ny asa mitondra akondro makany Sirabe. De miasa tamin'ny nanivana tandraka volamena tamin'ny Tandranomavo. De tafaran'izay ny nanao ase voameran'ny fahasalamana io.
Okay, so Artur, before GYEO came along, he was working in his village collecting bananas and traveling about 100 miles to take them to the market for very little money. After, he also connected with some people who were actually looking for gold. He was trying to make some money, so he went to try to make some money there. And for a while, when he was in his village, he actually started to work as a community health volunteer for a short time before, or he still does actually, there in his town. Okay, Artur?
Ny asa ataoko zao de maka sy magnatitra ny zero taona zany ny asa ataoko, zay zao ny asa.
And so now he's a GYEO franchisee, where he's renting out these lights to people in his community, as Tahiri just mentioned a minute ago. Okay, merci Artur. Afaka zavaina kely firy ny ménage mampiasa le GYEO am'izao de awana mahita le tombotsoa amin'ny GYEO mampiasa le GYEO. So I'm just asking him quickly how he works with the GYEO in his community, how many households is he working with, and how is he seeing that people are appreciating the lights?
Ny mampiasa GYEO amizao zao de 187. De ny isan'ny tranon'olona mampiasa anazy zany 183. Zay zao ny isan'olona isan'ny trano mampiasa anazy.
Okay, thank you, Artur. So currently, there's 187 households that are using the lights in his town that they're renting out from him. Okay, so Artur, I want to know le tombotsoa am'zareo mampiasa le GYEO.
Ny tombotsoa ny client mampiasa ny GYEO zany de mahazo fahazavana mandra-paraigna ny andro zany zareo mampiasa anazy. Le tombotsoa azona zareo aminazy zany de le miankizy mba ahafahan'le ankizy mianatra lesona rehefa amin'ny alina, rehefa alina ahafahan'ny ankizy mianatra lesona amin'ny alina.
Yeah, so he's saying this is giving light to most people in Madagascar who don't have access to any electricity. And specifically, it's helping children who study usually at night. They have to study around kerosene or a candle, but now they all have light to study in their community, in their households. De Arthur afaka avy kely ina le tombotsoa hitanao amin'ny fiainanao par rapport amin'ny asa miaraka amin'ny Zero V en comparaison amin'ny asa ataonao taloha.
Ny tombontsoako manokana zany nanamboarako ny nanomboka nampiasako nanamboarako Zero V zany dia afaka mamelona ny fianakaviana sy ny ankohonako zany aho nanomboako nampiasa ny Zero.
So now he's able to support his family. He's married with a 3-year-old child. And so now he's able to make enough money to support his family needs on a daily basis. Okay. Merci, Arthur. Arthur, ianao miteny mety misy ve perspective amin'ny asa ataonao, ianao miteny 187 ny ménage mampiasa le jiro am'izao, fa ianao mino mety mbola misy olona hafa mi-intéressé amin'ity, mety mbola mitombo ve le nombre ny client?
Tokony mbola hitombo zao satria 8 volana zao nanomboako ny asa zay de efa 180 nefa zao raha tokony izy zany tokony efa tafiditra zao.
Tokony mbola misy 180.
180 de tokony hitombo 400 zany izy am'izao.
Aye, okay. So asking how does he see his business moving forward? And right now he's got 187, but he's gone out to look at neighboring communities, and he's found that there's another 400 people minimally that want to also join and start renting the lights out. So he's excited about the business moving forward and growing. Okay, tsara zany Arthur. De Arthur, ina ny conseil mety omena amin'ny tanora hafa ohatra tianao asa mitovy aminao?
Ny conseil meko ny tanora hafa mitovy aminazy zao voalohany de misaotra ny mpandraharaha fa tena tsara izy satria manome asa fivolomana ho antegna manokana mba afahako miaro ny fianakaviana.
Okay, so I was just asking, and what advice might he give to other youth who are interested in doing this kind of work? And his first thing just to say thank you. You know, he's so appreciative of the work that he has so far because it's really helped change his life, and he hopes other youth would do that too. Wala misy conseil hafa ve Arthur?
Ny conseil hafa zao de magnentana any tanora eran'ny Madagasikara mba ho agnasara sy ampiroborobo ny angozo azo vaozina mba hiroborobo eran'ny Madagasikara ka eto de mametraka fagnentanana ho an'ny tanora eran'ny Madagasikara mba ho intéressé raha vao misy tolotr'asa atolotra ny GYEO zany mba andefa demandy amin'ny orinasa GYEO.
He said he really hopes that a lot more youth around the country would be able to also start this kind of activity, especially as so many people are without electricity. And this is a way to make that happen that's not very expensive. So he's hopeful that more youth would take advantage of this type of partnership. And if there are others that are interested, that they could also even contact GYEO to see the possibilities of working with them. Okay, misaotra betsaka amin'ny Arthur, tena mahafinaritra zany le asa ataonao de mety mbola misy fantaniana rehefa avy eo fa tena arabaina. Félicitations aminao satria efa hitanay fa tsara be le asa. Just want to say thank you to him. We're all very proud and excited of the work he's done, and congratulations so far in the work he's done. Misaotra betsaka Arthur.
Thank you, Jim. And you did take the words right out of my mouth. Just say to also thank Arthur for sharing about himself, his experience, and really what something like this has meant to his livelihood and the opportunities as well that he sees, both for himself in terms of expanding the business, if you will, but also for the community. And so thank you so much, Arthur, for taking part in this conversation, and really to help us take down some of these kind of really big mechanisms and some of the challenges we talk about, but really to see how it's really having a direct impact on young people, which is what this is all about. So thank you so much, Arthur. And now we'll turn over to Beth, to my colleague, Beth Collins. Over to you, Beth.
Thanks so much, Petula. I also want to thank Arthur, Ben, Tahiri, Irina, and also our colleague Jim in Madagascar. You may all be wondering, how did this panel come together? Well, all of the folks you've heard from today are friends and partners of CRS. And so it's really been a pleasure also for me to hear from each and every one of them. So I lead CRS's efforts on impact investing and private sector engagement. I'm going to focus today on our innovative finance work, our impact investing innovative finance work. And I'm going to start off by discussing CRS writ large and sort of how we lean into our CRS global strategy. Next slide. So CRS is in over 110 countries. We have over 7,000 staff. And 2 years ago, we embarked on a new strategy process where we're really seeking in transformational change at scale, sustainable solutions across large, really impactful goal areas, from emergency response to agricultural livelihoods and health. And also, if you look at goal number 5, you'll see that goal number 5 is that all youth are empowered to thrive. And that is the strategic change platform that Petula leads and is my partner as we think through what are some innovative financing approaches we can structure and work on together that can advance our outcomes, our development outcomes, and at scale and sustainably. Next slide. So CRS embarked on impact investing in innovative finance a few years ago and really was born out of Pope Francis's call to put the economies at the service of people. And what do we do with our innovative in finance and impact investing work? We see it as just another tool in our toolbox to advance our outcomes and really serve the poor and vulnerable who we work with around the world. We lead management and expansion of investment vehicles and deployment of innovative financing mechanisms. We build blended solutions for our riskier sectors and regions, which is primarily what we do, and I'll explain that in a minute and what I mean by blended finance. We invest a percentage of our global reserve in institutional quality impact funds, and we do direct investing, structuring, and advocacy work as well. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the work that we do and also explain where how our youth work fits into each one of them. So if you can just pull all these up. So our first blended finance vehicle was Azure. And what I mean by blended finance is leveraging philanthropy and grants for technical assistance in collaboration or partnership with an investment vehicle. So for Azure, we use technical support to work closely with our water service providers, we started in El Salvador, we're moving into Honduras, engineering support, business development support, and we have a separate firewalled LLC, Azure Source Capital, that makes loans to these water service providers, again, serving underserved populations in rural households in Latin America. Our second vehicle that we've structured and are leading is a local agricultural value chain vehicle. Again, blended finance, where we put the enterprises through acceleration. We do a lot of high touch support, and we then have a separate vehicle that makes loans to these local agriculture companies. Now, I'm just going to stop for a second on the first two because we do have metrics, in particular for Isidro, where we are measuring our impact on youth. And for example, with Isidro, the investment committee, which I sit on, just approved an investment in a cooperative, a honey cooperative in Guatemala, that 40% of the cooperative members are youth, for example. Azure does training for youth to work in collaboration and to come up with the water service providers. But I would say as we move on with the INP and Girove, and also with the work we're doing with Irina in Mexico, these investments are more deliberately, intentionally focused on youth specifically. So we are investing in INP's education to employment vehicle. We're coming in with first loss investment there. we are also co-investing with IMP's local fund Myriad in GYEO. So you've already heard from my friends and colleagues from both of those entities about that work, so I don't have to go on. I can answer questions if you have any. Next slide. We are also, Petula, in partnership with Petula, we are testing models, and as Irina mentioned, we're working on a social impact bond to secure formal jobs for youth in Nuevo León, Mexico. We're still in the process of discussions there, and hopeful that that will come together. And again, I feel that that's a pilot for us, and hopefully if we are able to close and move forward with this, it'll just be the beginning of what could be a larger bond. And we're a member of the Global Opportunity Youth Network, working collaboratively now with GDI on mapping youth innovative finance models. We're working on a proposal right now to begin that process and hoping to pilot an initiative in the coming year, next year, the year after. I should say that maybe what I haven't mentioned is that the work that we do, again, on impact investing, innovative finance, even on private sector engagement, is directly in collaboration with our program teams. We have an enormous footprint around the world, and though the folks in the field are our sector experts, what my team is and we are investment experts, I would say. So we look to partner, and structuring experts, we look to partner with our local teams who bring the expertise on agriculture, on youth, and so on. So we come together very collaboratively, which makes us really able to advance these discussions. As far as considerations go, next slide. I would say first and foremost, next slide, sorry. Yeah, you need patience because these structures take quite a long time to put together. You also have to be, I would say, flexible because we're testing these mechanisms. We're not sure really what's going to work ultimately, and also as you're going through the process, be flexible in the process, because with patience you need flexibility because things can change. Also, just to know if you're going to set something like this up and you're a nonprofit, you have to have specific expertise around investment and due diligence and deal structuring in order to really move these forward if you want to have investments that have a financial return. So again, it's very different than grants and philanthropy. You need to set these up in order to have a financial return. And if you want to attract external investors, again, having the expertise in-house will create confidence for external investors to come in and support that work. And then finally, I would say, and I think all of you on this call would agree that the challenge is enormous. So collaborating with people who may even know better than you or have ideas or opportunities such as, for example, GYEO, IMP, and Henderson Albero is really very critical. So thank you very much. Back to you, Petula.
Thank you so much, Beth. And we thought it was also important to have the perspective of an NGO that is investing significantly in this area, as Beth said, really kind of testing some of these, some of these models, and then also kind of like what does it take for a non-financial institution as CRS to be investing in these mechanisms. So we see there's some questions coming in the chat, but what we really wanted to do now was to just have a follow-up questions for our presenter. This also gives you, our audience, the opportunity to add some additional questions in the chat, and we will be taking those very shortly. So let me now turn over back to Irina, and if you can come back on camera, Irina, that will be great. As you work with local governments, how do you make the case, right, to these governments about investing in social impact bonds or other, pay for results mechanisms? And I guess also one of the questions that that comes to mind is, do you respond when they ask you, well, what's the financial and kind of social impact returns of these investments? So over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question, Petula. It's not always obvious to make the argument with governments, but some of them are very receptive. And I would say that one of the very important arguments that you can make with them is that they've tried many other policies that have not worked. And if you show them that these policies can have a really high return for the young people, and for example, the social impact bonds have shown very good results for formal employment. And formal employment, if you start working with people when they're very young, it shows a very high social return on impact for these people. They will have probably more than 110% return, higher living returns in their lives than if they go into the informal sector. So if you show governments that their money will be way better spent if they go into this kind of result-based policies, that if they keep trying things that are not very well proven, it would be they can be very receptive. The other way also is to show them that these young people, once they go into the formal sector, they will be participating into paying into the social security system, into the taxing mechanism of the government, which may be very important in some of our countries where we have very high rates of informality. And finally, some governments can be very receptive also to transparency mechanisms, because social impact bonds and other pay-for-result mechanisms are very transparent spending mechanisms, and some governments like the idea of having more efficient and transparent spending in their efficient policy making.
Thank you so much. I have a few other questions, but I think really highlighting here the incentives for the government in terms of transparency, in terms of future returns, right? In terms of the investment that they're making, and also the impact, right, on the long-term impact on the young people. So thank you so much, Irina. I will now turn over to Ben. So Ben, if you can turn on your camera, please. Hopefully you can hear us.
I will let go of turn my camera on.
Okay, because of the challenge, no problem. So Ben, I think you kind of alluded to it briefly in your presentation, but for a majority of young people in low and middle income countries, financing gap is it's a major barrier, right? And so since you have also worked on these issues, we'd be really interested to hear from you. What are some of the kind of viable solutions that you've come across, that you've seen or helped to develop, that should be maybe further expanded? Over to you.
Thank you, Petula. This is an interesting topic. We have worked and we are still working on that at IP2E. As I've said, access to quality education is a critical topic if you would like to tackle employability challenges of African youth. Unfortunately, this quality education is not often affordable for vulnerable people. This is, for example, the reason why we have implemented technical assistance, as I've said, dedicated to this issue in our MasterCard Foundation program. This technical assistance, again, is aimed to design policies to foster the accessibility in each country the program is targeting. There are a lot of instruments already in place in Africa to tackle the accessibility, to tackle the challenge. And I would like to point out an instrument like ISA, Income Sharing Agreement. It's student loan. The students will pay back once they will find a job. It's very present in countries, in Anglophone countries, for example, in West Africa. It is an interesting instrument, but from what we've learned, since the interest rate paid by students is very high, 2 digits interest rate. The reason of this higher interest rate could be found in the local context with very high interest rates abroad, but particularly we could find the reason of this higher interest rate in kind of investors in companies, in companies that are running, that are operating as income sharing agreement. We do believe having a blended finance approach for such companies would make sense to design affordable housing. We expect with IP2E investing in such companies regarding our lower expectations on interest rate and the fact that it's a blended finance vehicle. For example, to talk about other instruments we are exploring, with one of the companies supported by our MasterCard Foundation program already presented in Côte d'Ivoire, Teaching Master, we are exploring, for example, matching rents with private sector. It is also a blended approach where private companies will sponsor, for example, 50% of tuition fees for outstanding students, and the program, the MasterCard Foundation program, will pay for the remaining 50%. This approach is a winning partnership as companies will be in good position to attract talents from the campus.
Great.
There is other.
Sorry, Ben, if we can, we'll just go over to the others, and we know that there's some questions coming, so you'll have an opportunity to elaborate. But thank you, thank you so much. Yes, and so as Ben highlighted, that there's still work being done in this area to this particular gap, and then some of the testing also that they're doing with support from other institutional organizations to help fund this is contributing again, I think, and this is an emerging theme really to the learning, right? To the learning in this space. So let me turn over to Tahiri, and Tahiri, if you can just quickly turn on your camera. And I think this kind of relates to a kind of I think questions that has come up in the kind of in the chat is so how do you see kind of your company GYEO expanding in the next 3 to 5 years? Really thinking a little bit about are there particular opportunities or challenges that you see? Again, if you could keep your answer to maybe just a couple of minutes, so we can then have the 2 other presenters present, and we'll open it up and have more questions from our audience. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Petula. The Madagascar context is that 80% of the population live under $2 a day. And these are the people we are targeting. And now, as we speak, GYEO is active in 12 of the 23 regions of Madagascar. So basically, we are active in half of the country. And the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, well, then the main objective for GYEO is just to be active everywhere in the country, because everywhere in the country we have people in need of electricity, proper lighting. And can you remind me, Petula, what was the second one?
No, it was just about what do you see kind of as the opportunities, and I think or challenges, and so I think you covered it. So I'll move on to the next one, but then we can always come back to that. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you,
Tahiri, to really seeing the vision that your company has to really broaden this right to the rest of Madagascar, and also providing more employment opportunities.
Yes.
So let me turn over to Arthur. Arthur, so I understand that you also are kind of you are a farmer, You grow bananas. So would be kind of interested to hear briefly from you, both as kind of as a farmer, as a franchisee, how do you kind of manage your kind of, your activity? And then as you're looking to the future, right, in the next few years, what are you thinking? Is it your plan to continue to have these two kind of livelihoods? Do you see yourself focusing, increasingly more on being a franchisee? So just want to understand a little bit more about your kind of your aspirations as it relates to employment. So Jim, thank you so much for translating for Arthur. Thank you.
Okay. Mahino Arthur, le fantanina le petula ianao ve mbola mamboly, tsy haiko fa mbola mamboly de manao jiro ve koa. De ahoana zany ianao migerer le asa anankiroa au même moment zany satria lasa be asa be. Sa mbola manao le asa anankiroa ve sa tsy manao le anankiroa?
Efa ty manao an'le asa anankiroa zao fa le mamboly zany zao mbola ataoko aloha zany le mamboly.
Mbola mamboly foana?
Mbola mamboly foana zany. Fa le asa anankiroa teo aloha zany efa tsy ataoko koa zany amizao.
De ahoana ianao migerer zany ohatra manao le asa iray maraina, le asa iray amin'ny hariva, ahoana ianao migerer zany?
Ny fandaminako anazy zany zao de zay sy le madamako zany le miara-miasa zany satria zany efa le assistance iny efa atoroko anazy aby zany le fomba fandehany ao zany de efa zatra zany izy efa lalany de raha ohatra hoe ny fotoana andeha hiasa amin'ny maraina amin'ny tapany maraina de tonga de efa voafehiny zany le hoe zao atao de rehefa feno charge fotsiny izy am'le entana mavesatra de zay zao vao miaraka ireo milivrer anazy.
Okay, so he says yes, he still does farm, and he runs Dirove, and he works with his wife. They work very closely together to try to manage the farm and the business. He's also been hiring an assistant to help him with work with Dirove, so it also allows him to have a bit more free time to work on the farm when he needs to. And that sometimes when it's a lot of heavy things, particularly things like bananas and such, then he really does need help step in to make sure that he can help carry that when it's going to the market. Arthur, giusto pantanina farane par rapport amin'ny perspective, ianao mino fa mety mamboly foana sa mety mijanona le fambolena de lasa manao jiro ve fotsiny fa sa ianao mino fa afaka migerer le asa anankiroa foana?
Afaka migerer ny asa anankiroa io satria zany raha mbola amizao satria izy roa tao mbola visivisy zany de zay mbola itiavako anazy mbola te hignitatra zany satria izahay roa zany miaraka magnano anazy de mbola afaka ampena foana zany le nombre an'le ziro zany fa sy zanona amizao zany sady migerer ny asa hafa ambadika zany satria izy mba misy fotoana kely afaka adiny roa telo afahanao magnano asa hafa.
Okay, he says for now he wants to continue farming, that it's important to them to keep farming, though he does hope that the numbers for Dirove really continue to rise because there's a lot more that could be done, so that'll help his family even more. But he thinks they'll probably still do at least a bit of farming, but the business might start carrying more weight as the numbers increase. So Arthur.
Thank you. And I think he's holding the lamp, right? Is that what he has?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the lamp?
Yeah. Afaka atao amin'ny caméra le jiro. Ay, tsy maninka. Merci Arthur.
Merci Arthur.
Merci.
Okay,
Merci. And so now I'm going to turn over to my colleague Beth. And I think, the perspective again of an NGO investing, an INGO investing in this area is quite interesting. So Beth, I just wanted to kind of see if you, from your experience, deep experience in this, in this area, if you have any recommendation for other INGOs who, are interested in considering, kind of being investors, from what you've learned and how you've been leading this process. Would be great if you could share from that perspective. Over to you.
Thanks. I hope I can answer this question right. I think that, there's a couple of things here. Philanthropy alone, I think we all know, is not enough to meet this challenge. And also markets are not enough to meet the challenge. So in my view, with a nonprofit, what philanthropy can do is unlock or provide de-risking capital to make these investments more attractive to external investors, for example. So it's an opportunity for you, if you look at these blended finance options, to attract external investment, but then again, use your capital, your philanthropy, to de-risk any of these investments. The other thing I was going to say, and again, I'm not sure I'm directly answering this question, is that, when we got started, it was much more of a top-down initiative, and a large international nonprofit, that's not going to work. We have people in the field that know what they're doing, program staff all over the world. Petula leads our youth programming. And so it's really key to have both leadership support for this kind of new initiative and new thinking for a nonprofit, but also to really have our local teams, our program teams, to really see the value in it and to partner with you to expand on these initiatives so that they can really hopefully go far. Over. You might have something to add to that, Petula, I don't know.
No, but you answered it, really, I think you answered it really, really well. And I do think having the leadership really understand these mechanisms, the risk involved, but also the return is really critical. And I think you've been able to do that really well, Beth. So, kudos to you. So we're going to open the floor for a few questions. And this time, I'm going to start with Arthur. And so, Arthur, there is a question that's addressed to you in particular. So this comes from anonymous members who, first of all, thanks you for sharing your experience. And then based on this work that you've been doing, renting the lights, and as has the fact that you've been in contact with all those clients in your community, has this given you other ideas of services that as an entrepreneur you might want to provide? You see a particular gap that's not being addressed, where you think that might be an opportunity maybe for you even as a young entrepreneur or other young people as an entrepreneur. So over to Arthur via Jen.
Okay, Arthur, misy fanontaniana hafa. Ankoatran'ny misy service hafa ve ankoatran'ny jiro ve afaka varotany Arthur? Ankoatran'ny ohatran'ny lampe mety misy service hafa mety hitanao mety intéressant amin'ny olona any. Tsy maheno Arthur fa mbola mute.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Hitanao zao misy service hafa ohatra zao hoe amin'ny resaka rano zany, rano fisotro madio. Zay zao mba eritreritrako zany hoe mba afaka tokony hoe ampiresina am'le asa ity izy hoe zany le fagnentanana an'le olona amin'ny resaka rano.
Okay, so he's saying, yeah, he has. One thing is water. He's noticed that a lot of people don't have access to clean water, and he thinks there might be a way to put in some sort of clean water systems that people would then pay for also as a business. Arthur, mety misy service hafa koa ve koatran'izany?
Ohatran'ny service hafa koa zao de amin'ny resaka pépinière, amin'ny resaka masomboly zany tiako mba ananako hevitra kokoa zany agnitatra amina resaka hoe fampivoarana amina resaka fambolena zany, amina resaka fampiasana resaka voly fahondrana ambana voly fahodina sy ny tariny zany, zay mba eritreritako raha de saiko hoe ahoana.
Okay, so two other ideas. Well, one kind of combined is seeds and looking for seeds or tree saplings for farmers who are working on, say, agroforestry or other farming techniques when they need seeds, which is a big issue in his community. So he thinks there might be a lot of room to maybe start selling some of that as a business. Okay, Arthur.
Thank you, Arthur. Yes, and thank you so much. I think, as young people really are connected to the communities and as they're doing this work, it's really also interesting to really work with them to see what other needs of the communities that can be also kind of supported and filled through these other options. So again, I think just reiterating how critical it is for all of us to closely work with young people, not just as participants, but really as leaders and stakeholders in their community. And the insights that they bring and the experiences that they bring is valuable to help us really all advance as one on these issues. So again, thank you so much, Arthur. We don't have a lot of time. Maybe we'll take one more question. So maybe this one, Tahiri, this is addressed to you. And I think it's to kind of really understand a little bit more about kind of, from the model perspective, right? And so one question is like, So how do you really compare the revenues from renting versus selling the lamps? I mean, there clearly has to be, economical benefit to this. And then, they also want to just know a little bit more about the model. Do the franchisees earn money? And I think you're highlighting in your presentation that it's actually a fee. But if you could just maybe take 2 minutes to do that, to answer this question, that would be great, Tahiri. Over to you.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, like that, when we try to sell the products, then only very few people will have the purchasing power to really buy it. So in terms of sales, yes, it's going to be very quick benefits, but for very few lights. But as our objective is to make the maximum of people benefit of the advantages of the lights, then we aimed more at volume instead of direct sales. Like that, everybody can have access to the benefits that the light brings, but they are not becoming owner of the product. In such a way, for the rental fee, we can provide, how do you call this? We can make sure that at the end of the lifespan of the product, we are able to make profits with that particular product. And on top of that, we will be able also to buy a new product to replace the dead one. So economically, yes, it's viable, it works, but it requires volume, and rental is the best way, I would say, to reach as many people as fast as possible.
Thank you, Tahiri. And that really connects to what you were saying earlier about the plan and the vision also for your company to expand to the whole island of Madagascar. So thank you so much. We unfortunately have to close our session. So I just want to, first of all, to take this opportunity to thank our presenters, our wonderful presenters, panelists, as well as the audience for joining us in this really important kind of conversation and discussion. As we saw, there's an increasing number of innovative finance mechanisms that are being developed and tested in the youth employment space, and it really is generating a lot of rich discussion, exchange, and learning. So we at CRS, along with other stakeholders, including those here and collaborators, really look forward to continuing to share the experiences and the learning and to connecting with many of you so that at the end of the day, young people can have access to educational and employment opportunities, have sustainable livelihood, and really be on a path of success. So thank you again to everyone, and over to you, Matt.
Great. Thank you, Petula, and for moderating such an interesting conversation. There's so much to talk about. We could have been here, I think, for much longer. I want to also thank our speakers, Irina, Ben, Tahiri, Arthur, and Beth, who shared how blended finance models and social impact bond instruments can support companies, communities, and young people. Arthur, is fantastic to have you, a hero of a franchisee who, as we heard, is exploring other potential business opportunities in his community as well. And we're glad Arthur was able to join us to highlight, how a rural young person with really minimal exposure to global platforms such as this one. Thank you, Jim, for translating, so Arthur could speak comfortably in Malagasy, his local language. So I thought that was great to hear. So maybe if we could go close out here for the next slide. I invite everyone who's joined us today to join us for upcoming solution sessions this week and next. If you visit us online, you'll see more information about the GYEO 2030 initiative, and you can register for other webinars over the next couple of weeks. There's some associated sessions in addition to these lead ones you see on the slide. And maybe just on the closing slide here, for more details, we have the website. You can go to gyeo2030.org, the events tab, And I'll just close by thanking everyone. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, and evening, and join us in our next session, which will be tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.